The great hall, a kaleidoscope of house colors and boisterous chatter, felt less like a welcoming embrace and more like a roaring ocean threatening to drown Asher Pendelton. A first-year Gryffindor, barely taller than a stack of spellbooks, he felt acutely the chasm between his quiet, muggle-raised life and the dizzying grandeur of Hogwarts. Every day was a fresh assault on his already frayed nerves, potions classes that threatened to explode, charms that stubbornly refused to charm, and the sheer, overwhelming magic that permeated every stone and whisper. He traced the rim of his pumpkin juice goblet, trying to disappear into the polished oak table. The truth was, he wasn't just a shy boy struggling with a new world. He was a walking, breathing paradox. Somewhere deep within him, coiled like a dormant dragon, was a power that made even the most complex Hogwarts enchantments feel like child's play. A power he'd stumbled upon in a forgotten shrine years ago, bestowed by an enigmatic entity, activated by a single, thunderous word, Shazam. The transformation was violent, glorious, and utterly impossible to conceal. A blinding flash of lightning, a deafening crack of thunder, and then he was no longer Asher Pendelton, the awkward boy. He was Captain Asher, an adult, magically enhanced wizard, radiating strength, confidence, and an almost frightening command of magic. Flight, super strength, heightened senses, it was all there, potent and terrifying. And then another Shazam would snap him back to his original, unassuming self, usually leaving him disoriented and paranoid. This secret was a lead weight in his stomach, a constant hum of anxiety beneath his skin. He desperately wanted to fit in, to prove himself, especially to Gryffindor, his house of the brave. He yearned for a place where his unique nature could be an asset, not a burden. That place, he secretly hoped, was the Quidditch pitch. He'd spent hours watching the older students practice, their brooms carving graceful arcs against the turbulent Scottish sky. He wasn't a natural flyer. His first attempts had been clumsy, bordering on disastrous. But something about the seeker position called to him. The speed, the focus, the hunt for the elusive golden snitch. In his transformed state, his senses were razor-sharp, his reflexes instantaneous. Could he, somehow, translate even a fraction of that into his normal self? It was a reckless gamble, a terrifying thought, but the Gryffindor captain had announced trials for first-year seekers, and a flicker of desperate hope ignited within him. "You really going to try out, Asher?" Elara Vance's voice, bright and observant, cut through his thoughts. She slid onto the bench beside him, her scarlet scarf a vibrant splash against the gloom. Elara, a fellow Gryffindor first year, had a knack for noticing things others missed, her keen eyes missing nothing, a trait that both comforted and unnerved Asher. "You don't seem like the Quidditch type, no offense." Asher flinched, his cheeks coloring. "None taken," he mumbled, pushing his glasses higher up his nose. I thought I'd give it a shot. Everyone says Gryffindor needs a good seeker." Elara grinned, her dark hair bouncing. "True. Last year was a bit of a wash." "Well, good luck. Maybe you've got hidden talents. You certainly have a knack for disappearing when the teachers call on you in class." She winked, a playful jab at his shyness. Asher managed a weak smile, grateful for her lightheartedness, even if her observation was a little too close to the truth. His disappearances often coincided with brief, panicked transformations and retransformations in empty classrooms, just to test his powers. The next morning was cold, crisp, and charged with anticipation. Asher shivered, a combination of the biting wind and sheer terror, as he joined a cluster of nervous first years on the edge of the Quidditch pitch. The grandstands loomed, silent and empty, waiting for the roar of future crowds. The Gryffindor captain, a stern-faced seventh year named Declan O'Malley, surveyed them with a critical eye. "All right, listen up." Declan's voice boomed across the pitch. "We're looking for focus, speed, and raw talent. You'll take turns. I'll release the snitch. Your job is to catch it. Simple as that. You have 5 minutes each. Any questions?" There were none, only shuffling feet and anxious glances. Asher felt his stomach clench. He was small, not particularly athletic, and his borrowed school broom felt like a dead weight in his hands. He watched as a burly boy named Kevin launched himself clumsily into the air, wobbling precariously before spinning off course, missing the snitch entirely. Then a girl, Penelope, showed more promise, chasing the snitch with spirited determination before losing it in the glare of the morning sun. Asher's turn came. His palms were sweating as he gripped the broom handle. "Pendleton," Declan called, his voice impatient. "Let's see what you've got." He pushed off the ground, a familiar surge of adrenaline mixing with utter dread. He was slow, clumsy, his broom sputtering beneath him. The wind whipped his hair into his eyes, and his glasses kept slipping. He managed to stay aloft, but his movements were jerky, uncoordinated. Declan sighed audibly from below. Then, the glint. The golden snitch, a tiny, impossibly fast blur, zipped past his left ear. Asher's heart hammered against his ribs. He banked clumsily, forcing his broom to accelerate, but he was no match for its speed. He watched it dance tantalizingly out of reach, his first minute already ticking away. This is it, he thought, a wave of despair washing over him. I'm going to fail. I'm going to embarrass myself. I'll never fit in. He pushed harder, leaning forward, straining every muscle, but his broom was sluggish. The snitch dipped, then soared directly towards a cluster of practice hoops. Asher veered to follow, pushing his broom to its absolute limit, a desperate, silent plea forming in his mind. He saw it, a terrifying blur of green and gold, another trialist, an older fifth-year boy named Marcus, suddenly darting in from his right, going for the same snitch. Marcus was faster, more experienced. He would intercept it. Asher was too slow, too weak. The snitch was almost gone, disappearing into the morning haze, the moment slipping away. Panic flared, cold and sharp. He felt a primal surge of frustration, a desperate need to be more, do more. His eyes locked onto the distant speck of gold. The word, always simmering just beneath the surface during moments of extreme stress, ripped itself from his throat, unbidden, involuntary, a raw whisper that felt like a scream in his ears. Shazam! The world dissolved into a blinding white flash. A crack, impossibly loud and sharp, echoed across the silent Quidditch pitch, reverberating through the very stones of Hogwarts Castle. For a fraction of a second, the air itself seemed to shatter, charged with raw, untamed magic. It was a roar of thunder on a cloudless day, a bolt of pure energy striking from nowhere. Then Asher was gone. In his place, high above the pitch, was a figure of imposing stature and unwavering presence. Captain Asher. His Gryffindor robes had vanished, replaced by a streamlined, crimson suit emblazoned with a stylized lightning bolt across the chest. His eyes, no longer hidden behind spectacles, burned with a calm, intelligent intensity. His build was powerfully muscled, his jaw set with an adult's determination. The broomstick, momentarily forgotten, clattered to the pitch below. Captain Asher didn't need it. With a silent, effortless push, he rocketed forward, a crimson blur accelerating with impossible speed. His senses, now sharpened to an almost supernatural degree, registered every twitch of the golden snitch's tiny wings, every shift in the air currents. Marcus, the fifth year, was still a good 50 feet behind, his eyes widening in disbelief at the sudden, impossible acceleration. The snitch, a frantic golden bee, darted left, then right, attempting its usual evasive maneuvers. But Captain Asher was already there, anticipating, moving with a grace and precision that defied explanation. He extended a hand, not grabbing, but simply intercepting. The snitch fluttered once, twice, then lay still, cupped gently in his palm. Silence. The air still thrummed with residual energy, but the crack of thunder had faded. Below, Declan O'Malley, along with the other first years, stood frozen, their mouths agape, staring up at the figure hovering effortlessly high above them. The sun caught the lightning bolt on his chest, making it gleam. Captain Asher looked down at the snitch, a flicker of bewildered satisfaction in his eyes. Then, the weight of the moment, the impossible exposure, crashed down. He had done it. He had caught the snitch. But at what cost? He could feel the eyes of every student on him, feel the lingering hum of the lightning in the air. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. His secret. A desperate, panicked thought. He had to revert, now. Another word, barely audible even to himself, ripped from his lips. Shazam. Another crack of thunder, another blinding flash of white light, though this one seemed to suck the very color from the sky. When the light faded, Captain Asher was gone. In his place, plummeting from the sky, was a small, disoriented first-year boy, flailing helplessly. Whoa. Declan O'Malley reacted instantly, shouting a quick, arresto momentum, just as Asher hit the ground with a cushioned thud, winded and trembling. He lay there for a moment, gasping, his glasses askew, the golden snitch still clutched tightly in his hand. He pushed himself up, his eyes darting wildly. He saw Declan staring at him, a mixture of awe and utter confusion etched on his face. He saw Elara, her usually cheerful expression replaced by a look of stunned disbelief, her gaze not on him, but at the exact spot where the lightning had struck. And then he felt it, a cold, piercing stare from the edge of the pitch, where a group of older Slytherins had gathered, drawn by the commotion. One boy, with dark, shrewd eyes and an almost predatory smirk, was watching him with an intensity that sent a fresh wave of dread through Asher. Cassius Thorne, a name whispered with a mixture of fear and respect in the corridors. Asher clutched the snitch, his hands shaking. He had done it. He had caught the snitch. He was on the team. But the lightning, the flash, it had been seen. His secret, his terrible, magnificent secret, had just been dangerously, irrevocably exposed. And he had absolutely no idea how he was going to explain it. The notice board in the Gryffindor common room, usually a chaotic mess of dueling club flyers and lost and found enchanted socks, suddenly held the weight of Asher Pendelton's entire future. He'd squeezed through the jostling crowd of excited first years, his heart hammering against his ribs, to read the ink-scrawled list. There it was, halfway down the roster of names for the Gryffindor Quidditch team. Seeker, Asher Pendelton, first year. A cheer erupted around him, mostly from his own housemates, celebrating the inclusion of a first year. Elara Vance, her usually neat auburn ponytail slightly askew from the crush, beamed at him. You did it, Asher. That was incredible. I've never seen anyone move like that. Asher managed a weak, grateful smile, but a cold knot of dread tightened in his stomach. Incredible, yes, but also terrifying. The flash of lightning, the crack of thunder that had accompanied his desperate mid-air transformation had not gone unnoticed. He'd heard the murmurs, seen the wide eyes. And he knew, with a sinking certainty, that Cassius Thorne, the Slytherin chaser, had been watching. Across the great hall at breakfast the next morning, Cassius sat with his usual air of arrogant superiority, but his gaze kept flicking towards the Gryffindor table, specifically to Asher. There was a glint in his sharp, calculating eyes that sent shivers down Asher's spine. It wasn't just competitive rivalry, it was suspicion, a predator's curiosity. Classes proved little respite. Asher found it hard to focus on Professor Flitwick's charms lecture or Professor Sprout's wriggling mandrakes. His mind replayed the transformation, the exhilarating rush of power, followed by the blinding flash and the inevitable, deafening crack. How could he possibly keep this secret? His Ancient Runes class, however, offered an unexpected, albeit cryptic, distraction. Professor Flint, a man whose silver hair resembled a perpetually startled bird's nest and whose spectacles were always perched precariously on his nose, seemed to regard Asher with an unsettling intensity. Today's lesson was on ancient power sources and their resonance. Magic, you see, Professor Flint mused, tapping a gnarled finger on a scroll depicting archaic runes, is not merely spells and incantations. It is energy, an inherent force in the universe. Some, very rarely, stumble upon channels to power far older, far grander than our modern understanding allows. He paused, his gaze sweeping over the class before settling, just for a moment too long, on Asher. Such power, he continued, his voice dropping to a near whisper, demands immense responsibility. It has a way of revealing itself, of announcing its presence. And like a lightning storm, it cannot be easily contained, nor should it be taken lightly. Asher's quill scratched nervously on his parchment, the words echoing in his ears. Was Professor Flint merely being philosophical, or did he know? The thought sent a jolt of fear through him. The first official Gryffindor Quidditch practice was scheduled for later that afternoon. Asher spent the intervening hours in a state of anxious purgatory. He practiced simple seeker maneuvers in his head, trying to imagine catching the snitch without resorting to his monstrous secret. But how could he truly compete, with experienced players, without the speed and heightened senses Captain Asher commanded? As the team gathered on the pitch, the chill autumn air biting at their cheeks, Asher felt the weight of expectation. Angelina Johnson, the Gryffindor captain, gave a rousing speech, reminding them of the upcoming match against Slytherin. "Thorne's lot will be expecting us to crumble," she declared, her broomstick held aloft like a sword. "But we'll show them Gryffindor fire. Asher, you're new, but you showed us what you can do. Let's see it again." Asher gulped. "See it again?" He nodded, forcing a confident expression. The practice started with basic drills. Asher, still in his normal form, felt clumsy slow. He missed a few snitch passes, his fingers fumbling. He could feel Elara's concerned glances from her chaser position. Even the Gryffindor keeper, Oliver Wood, a fifth year with an almost obsessive dedication to Quidditch, shot him a questioning look. "Pendleton, focus," Angelina yelled, frustration creeping into her voice. "What happened to that blinding speed from trials?" The pressure mounted. Asher felt a familiar tremor of panic. He had to find a way. He spotted the snitch zipping erratically near the Slytherin goalposts, a golden blur just out of reach. He pushed his Nimbus 2000 harder, but it wasn't enough. He was falling behind another experienced seeker who was also trying out. This was it. He had to. But how to hide the Shazam? An idea, desperate and half-formed, sparked in his mind. The Quidditch stadium was vast, with towering stands and numerous turrets. He remembered a cloud of particularly dense, low-hanging fog that had drifted over a corner of the pitch. If he could fly into it, yell the word, and transform, perhaps the sound and light would be muffled, obscured. He veered sharply, making it look like a daring, if slightly reckless, pursuit of the snitch. He ignored Angelina's shout of "Pendleton, where are you going?" and flew directly towards the thickest part of the fog bank. His heart hammered. This was insane. He plunged into the gray, swirling mist. Visibility dropped to mere feet. "Now or never," he whispered, his voice trembling. He took a deep breath, clenched his fists, and yelled, "Shazam!" The roar of thunder was deafening, even muffled by the fog. A blinding flash of pure, crackling lightning erupted, illuminating the swirling mist in a momentary, incandescent burst of white and gold. The transformation was instantaneous, ripping through him with raw, ancient power. Captain Asher, taller, muscular, and radiating a subtle magical aura, now occupied the space Asher had just been in. The sound of the crackle echoed, reverberating through the heavy air. He shot out of the fog a fraction of a second later, a blur of motion. His senses were hyperacute, the snitch's rapid wing beats practically a melody in his ears. He was a lightning bolt himself, streaking across the pitch, covering the distance in an impossible blink. With an effortless extension of his hand, he plucked the snitch from the air, the tiny golden sphere nestling in his powerful grip. He circled back, descending slowly, the snitch held aloft. Angelina stared, her jaw slack. Oliver let out a low whistle. Elara, however, wasn't looking at the snitch. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, were fixed on the very edge of the fog bank, where a faint, smoky afterglow of the lightning still lingered. "Asher, that was," Angelina began, a mixture of awe and bewilderment on her face. "How did you?" Before she could finish, a furious shout cut through the air. "What in Merlin's beard was that, Pendleton?" Asher's blood ran cold. He spun around. Standing on the ground below, just beyond the edge of the Slytherin stands, was Cassius Thorne. His face was contorted in a mask of rage and suspicion. He hadn't seen the transformation, not exactly. But he had been watching the fog bank where Asher had disappeared, and he had seen the flash. He had heard the crack. And he was pointing an accusing finger directly at Asher. "I saw that, Pendleton." Cassius yelled, his voice carrying clearly across the pitch. Some kind of illegal spell, a power boost. You call that Quidditch, you cheat. Panic seized Asher. He had to revert, now. But Cassius was still staring, his eyes like daggers. If he yelled Shazam, again, right here, right now, he'd be exposed. Utterly. Completely. He clutched the snitch, his mind racing. He was still Captain Asher, radiating power, but his heart was pounding with the fear of a 12-year-old boy. He couldn't transform back, not yet. Not with Cassius's eyes boring into him. He was trapped. Thorne, get off the pitch. Angelina hollered, flying down to intervene. This is Gryffindor practice. You have no business here. I have every business here when someone is blatantly cheating. Cassius retorted, his voice venomous. That wasn't natural, Captain Johnson. A blinding flash, a boom like thunder. I was in the fog. Asher blurted out, his transformed voice deeper than his normal one, attracting more suspicious glances. It was a backfire from a charm. A new technique. He winced internally. A backfire from a charm? Really, Asher? Cassius scoffed, clearly unconvinced. A backfire that gave you supernatural speed? Don't insult my intelligence, Pendleton. He took a step forward, eyes narrowed. I'm going to find out what you're doing. And when I do, you'll be out of Hogwarts faster than you can say illegal magic. Asher felt a tremor of despair. He knew Cassius wasn't bluffing. His secret, already tenuous, was now hanging by a thread, caught in the calculating gaze of his most dangerous opponent. The next Quidditch match against Slytherin, which was only a few days away, suddenly felt less like a game and more like a ticking time bomb. The roar of the crowd was a physical entity, a sentient beast that pressed in on Asher from all sides. The Gryffindor stands, a riot of scarlet and gold, swayed with anticipation. Below, the emerald green of the Slytherin section pulsed with a colder, more predatory energy. Today was Gryffindor versus Slytherin, the first critical match of the season, and the weight of his house's hopes felt like a lead bludger in Asher's stomach. He clutched the handle of his Comet 260, the polished wood slick with nervous sweat. He was a seeker, a first year at that, and the idea of soaring high above the pitch, a tiny golden snitch his sole focus, was both exhilarating and terrifying. The terrifying part was far more prominent. He'd barely slept, strategizing elaborate mid-air illusions, hoping to find some way to unleash Captain Asher without the world witnessing a lightning bolt erupt from a small boy. You've got this, Asher. Elara Vance called from beside him, her voice surprisingly steady amidst the din. Her ginger braid bounced as she gripped her broom, eyes bright with competitive fire. As a chaser, she lived for this. Just follow your instincts. And remember what McLaggen said about staying high. Asher nodded, forcing a weak smile. Elara was a rock, her unwavering confidence contagious, but even she didn't know the true depth of his predicament. His instincts, when it came to his secret, were a liability. The whistle shrieked, echoing across the grounds, and the players launched themselves skyward. Asher felt the familiar lurch as his broom carried him higher, the wind whipping his robes. He circled wide, trying to get a read on the other seeker, a lanky, dark-haired fourth-year Slytherin named Bletchley, known for his relentless pursuit. Below, the quaffle changed hands rapidly. Elara, a blur of scarlet, weaved through the Slytherin defense, passing deftly to another chaser, Demelza Robbins, who slammed the quaffle through the central hoop. A cheer erupted from the Gryffindor stands, momentarily drowning out the taunts from the Slytherins. 10-0 to Gryffindor, the commentator, a giddy Hufflepuff fifth year, shrieked. Asher scanned the vast expanse, his eyes straining. He needed the snitch, and he needed it before Gryffindor's lead, slim as it was, evaporated. Cassius Thorne, the Slytherin chaser, was a formidable presence. Asher could see him, a menacing streak of green, dominating the midfield. Cassius's gaze seemed to flick towards Asher a few times, a possessive, calculating look that made Asher's skin crawl. 20 minutes in, the game was a brutal dance. Slytherin had drawn level, then pulled ahead. Their beaters were relentlessly targeting Gryffindor's chasers, and Bletchley, the Slytherin seeker, was doing an admirable job of shadowing Asher. A flash, a glint of gold just beyond Bletchley's head. Asher's heart leaped. He surged forward, but Bletchley reacted instantly, cutting him off. Asher swerved, pushing his broom to its limit, but the snitch was already gone, a fleeting phantom. The score crept up, 60-40 to Slytherin. Asher felt a knot of despair tighten in his chest. He was trying, but he just wasn't fast enough, wasn't quick enough. He felt the snitch, almost felt its presence, but couldn't physically keep up with Bletchley's desperate, aggressive blocking. Suddenly, a bludger, struck with savage force by a Slytherin beater, veered wildly off course. It wasn't aimed at the chasers, it was heading straight for Elara, who was focused on intercepting a pass, her back to the incoming danger. It was too fast, too close. No one could warn her in time. Asher's mind screamed. This wasn't about winning anymore. It was about saving his friend. He couldn't let Elara get hit. But how? He was too far, and his broom wasn't fast enough. This is it, he thought, his blood chilling. There's no other way. He plunged downwards, feigning pursuit of the snitch, hoping the sudden move would create some visual confusion. He looked around wildly, praying for a stray cloud or a momentary distraction. The stadium was a whirlwind of motion, but not enough to conceal the inevitable. With Elara a mere 20 feet ahead, the bludger closing in, Asher made his choice. He inhaled deeply, drawing courage from a well he hadn't known he possessed. Shazam! A blinding crack of lightning tore through the air, momentarily stunning the crowd. A bolt of raw energy erupted from Asher's position, bathing a small corner of the pitch in brilliant white light. Where the small, nervous first year had been, a tall, powerfully built wizard now soared, his Gryffindor robes transformed into a crimson tunic emblazoned with a golden lightning bolt. Captain Asher. Time seemed to slow. Captain Asher shot forward with impossible speed, a streak of red and gold. He intercepted the bludger with a casual flick of his hand, sending it hurtling back towards the Slytherin beater who had sent it. The beater barely dodged, his face a mask of shock. Without a second to spare, Captain Asher spotted a distinct gleam of gold near the opposing team's goalpost, the snitch. He launched himself after it, a silent, powerful torpedo. His enhanced vision locked onto the tiny orb, his hand outstretched. He felt the satisfying flutter of its wings against his palm, securing it. The entire sequence, from transformation to bludger deflection to snitch catch, had taken perhaps 5 seconds. The crowd, still reeling from the unexpected flash of light, gasped. The snitch was in Captain Asher's hand, held aloft for all to see. Then, just as quickly, another crack of lightning. Captain Asher vanished, and in his place, hovering precariously on his Comet 260, was a bewildered-looking Asher Pendelton, the snitch still clutched in his hand. The transformation was gone, leaving only the faint scent of ozone and the bewildered silence of thousands. The commentator, having finally found his voice, bellowed, "He's caught the snitch. Asher Pendelton has caught the snitch. Gryffindor wins. 190-90. The Gryffindor stands erupted, a deafening wave of jubilation. Asher, still trembling from the adrenaline and the shock of his daring feat, felt a wave of relief so profound it almost buckled him. He had won. He had saved Elara. But the cost. Below him, Elara was looking up, her face pale, but her eyes wide with awe. Asher, you were incredible. That speed. And that flash of light, what was that? She shouted over the cheering. She wasn't suspicious, not exactly. More like deeply impressed and very, very confused. But Asher knew, instinctively, that one person on the pitch wasn't cheering. He found Cassius Thorne's gaze instantly. The Slytherin chaser hovered motionless on his broom, his usual sneer replaced by a look of cold, calculating fury. He hadn't just seen the flash, he'd seen the impossible speed, the deflection of the bludger, the instantaneous snitch catch. He'd seen enough to know that something profoundly abnormal had just occurred. His eyes narrowed, burning with a dangerous resolve. Asher's heart sank. Back on solid ground, the celebration was chaotic. His teammates clapped him on the back. Elara threw her arms around him, babbling about his incredible reflexes. Asher mumbled vague excuses about a burst of adrenaline and the sun catching his glasses. Honestly, Asher, it was like a bolt of lightning struck you and then you just moved. Elara exclaimed, still vibrating with excitement. I didn't even see the bludger until it was flying away from me. Asher forced a weak smile, trying to look modest and overwhelmed. He was overwhelmed, but not by the praise. He was overwhelmed by the terrifying realization that his secret was now hanging by a thread, fraying with every second. He caught a glimpse of Cassius Thorne pushing through the milling crowd, heading towards the Slytherin locker rooms, his jaw clenched, his eyes still fixed on Asher. The look on Cassius's face was not one of defeat, but of grim, unwavering determination. He wouldn't let this go. Asher knew, with a sickening certainty, that he had secured a win for Gryffindor, but he had paid for it dearly. Cassius Thorne now had a solid, undeniable reason to believe Asher was up to something, and his next move would be far more direct, far more dangerous than mere suspicion. The game had just begun for Asher Pendelton, and the stakes were higher than ever. The aftermath of the last Quidditch match lingered in the air like a persistent, unwelcome chill. Gryffindor had won, yes, but the celebratory cheers had barely reached Asher's ears over the frantic beat of his own heart. He'd barely escaped, collapsing back into his seat in the common room, the echoes of Shazam still vibrating in his bones. Now, more than ever, he felt the weight of Cassius Thorne's gaze. It wasn't just suspicion anymore, it was an active, predatory pursuit. Everywhere Asher went, he felt it. A flicker in his peripheral vision, a shadow rounding a corner a moment too late, the subtle rustle of robes behind him in the library. Cassius wasn't just watching, he was hunting. The Slytherin chaser, usually surrounded by his own coterie of sycophants, now often moved alone, his lean frame a silent, menacing presence. One afternoon, Asher was attempting to focus on a transfiguration essay, but his quill hovered uselessly over the parchment. He kept glancing towards the library entrance. Elara, sitting opposite him, stacked a pile of ancient texts with a soft thud. You know, if you keep staring at the doorway like that, someone's bound to think you're expecting a secret admirer, she teased gently, though her eyes held concern. Asher jumped, his face flushing. It's not that, he mumbled, pushing his unruly hair out of his eyes. It's Thorne. Elara's expression hardened. I've noticed. He's been following you, hasn't he? Not very subtle for someone who prides himself on cunning. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. He was asking around about that peculiar lightning during the match. To anyone who'd listen, he was muttering about unconventional magic and unfair advantages. Asher's stomach clenched. He's getting closer. He thinks you're cheating, Asher, Elara stated plainly. He doesn't know how, but he's convinced you're up to something. He even tried to bait me in potions, asking if I'd noticed any sudden changes in our first-year seeker's disposition or abilities recently. I just rolled my eyes and told him to focus on not blowing up his own cauldron. Thanks, Elara, Asher said, genuinely grateful for her loyalty. He valued her friendship more than she knew. She was the one consistent anchor in his swirling world of secrets and anxiety. The confrontation came swiftly, as if Cassius had been waiting for the opportune moment. It was late, just after dinner, when most students had dispersed to their common rooms or the library. Asher was taking a circuitous route back to Gryffindor Tower, hoping to shake any potential tail. He was near a forgotten tapestry depicting a rather plump troll attempting to play a lute when a voice cut through the quiet. Pendleton. Asher froze. He turned slowly to see Cassius Thorne emerging from a shadowed alcove, his arms crossed, a smirk playing on his lips. His dark eyes glinted with a cold satisfaction. Thorne, Asher managed, his voice a little too high. In a hurry, are we? Trying to avoid someone. Cassius stepped closer, his footsteps unnervingly quiet. Or perhaps just trying to avoid the truth? Asher swallowed hard. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, I think you do. Cassius stopped a few feet away, invading Asher's personal space. Tell me, Pendleton, what was that flash of lightning during the match? And the one at practice? Quite the special effect, isn't it? Very dramatic. And utterly unprecedented in Quidditch, or any known branch of magic, for that matter. It was just A magical surge, Asher stammered, scrambling for an explanation. Accidental magic. You know, first-year stuff. Happens all the time. Cassius let out a low, derisive chuckle. Accidental magic? Please. I've seen first years turn their professor's hair blue, not conjure a blinding bolt of raw power, and then suddenly outfly a golden snitch going at full tilt. You think I'm an imbecile, Pendleton? His voice dropped, edged with steel. I saw your eyes just before the lightning. Something changed in them. Something older, stronger. Asher's heart hammered against his ribs. He felt a desperate urge to transform, to unleash Captain Asher and make Thorne back down, but that would be the ultimate confession. He was trapped. You're imagining things, Thorne, Asher insisted, trying to project a confidence he didn't feel. You're just annoyed Gryffindor one. Oh, Gryffindor's victory is merely an irritation. Your secret, however, is a fascinating puzzle. Cassius leaned in, his voice a whisper. And I will solve it. I've been watching you. I've noticed you always seem to be in the perfect position after these accidents. I've noticed how you clutch your chest sometimes or seem disoriented just before or after. It's almost as if you're not entirely yourself, is it? Asher took a step back, his breath catching in his throat. Cassius knew too much. He was piecing it together. The implications were catastrophic. Not just for his Quidditch career, but for his very life at Hogwarts and possibly beyond. A unique, unknown magical ability? The Ministry of Magic would be all over him. He'd be dissected, studied, perhaps even feared. Stay out of my business, Thorne, Asher warned, trying to sound menacing, but his voice cracked slightly. Cassius merely smiled, a chilling, triumphant curve of his lips. It became my business the moment you threatened Slytherin's dominion on the pitch. And rest assured, Pendleton, I'm not stopping until I expose exactly what kind of freakish magic you're dabbling in. With that, he turned and vanished back into the shadows, leaving Asher trembling, alone in the echoing corridor. The encounter left Asher rattled to his core. He couldn't sleep that night, the words freakish magic replaying in his mind. He felt like a ticking time bomb, and Cassius Thorne was holding the match. He needed guidance, and there was only one person who offered even a sliver of understanding. The next day, Asher found Professor Flint in his cluttered ancient runes classroom, meticulously examining a chipped runic tablet. The professor, as usual, seemed to exist slightly out of sync with the rest of the world, his spectacles perched precariously on his nose, a faint scent of old parchment and strange herbs clinging to him. Professor Flint? Asher asked, his voice barely a whisper. Flint startled, almost dropping the tablet. He blinked, his eyes, magnified by his glasses, settling on Asher. Young Pendleton. To what do I owe the pleasure? Come to decipher the meaning of euros on a Tuesday? A bold choice. Asher approached the desk, twisting his hands nervously. No, Professor. It's something else. It's about power. Flint's bushy eyebrows rose slightly. He set the tablet down with care. Power, you say? A broad and fascinating topic. The runes themselves are conduits of power, echoes of ancient forces. What particular aspect troubles you? The control of it. And the consequences, Asher confessed, choosing his words carefully. What happens when someone has great power, but they don't know how to use it or how to hide it? What if others suspect them or want to expose them? Professor Flint leaned back in his creaky chair, stroking his wispy beard. A knowing glint entered his eyes. The eternal dilemma of the wielder. Power is a double-edged sword, young Pendleton. It can build and it can destroy. It can save and it can doom. But its true nature is often misunderstood. But what if it's unusual power? Something unknown. Asher pressed, desperate for a tangible answer, even a cryptic one. All magic, at its heart, is unusual. But some forms merely resonate with older currents forgotten by modern wizards. Flint's gaze seemed to pierce through Asher. The key, then, is balance. To master power, one must first master oneself. To use it wisely, one must understand its source, its limitations, and its potential impact. And to conceal it, that requires not just skill, but conviction. Conviction. Indeed. A conviction in your purpose. If you use your power for selfish gain or out of fear, it will betray you. If you wield it with integrity, for the greater good, then its very essence will aid in your discretion. Furthermore, Flint paused, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Those who seek to expose you often reveal their own vulnerabilities. Their desperation, their jealousy, their ambition, these are far more potent forces than any detection spell. Asher mulled over the words. So, I should understand my power, use it for good, and watch out for their desperation. Precisely. Flint nodded, then picked up a small, intricately carved wooden bird. Remember, Pendleton, the mightiest storm begins with a single crack of thunder. But it is the purpose of the storm, whether to cleanse or destroy, that ultimately defines its legacy. And for concealing that thunder. He set the bird down and picked up a piece of ordinary chalk, drawing a quick, fluid symbol on his desk. It wasn't a rune Asher recognized. This is a variant of a concealment charm. It doesn't hide the event, but it clouds the memory or the perception of it, especially for those who are merely looking for fault, rather than the truth. It's not perfect, but it can buy you time. A focused mind, a clear purpose, and perhaps a bit of ancient misdirection can go a long way against an inquisitive mind blinded by envy. He erased the symbol with his sleeve. Now, back to your essay, I presume? Asher left Professor Flint's classroom feeling a mix of relief and renewed anxiety. The cryptic advice was both helpful and terrifying. He knew he needed to understand his power better, but time was running out. Cassius was relentless. That evening, the Gryffindor common room was abuzz with chatter about the upcoming match against Ravenclaw. It was a crucial game, determining who would advance to the final against Slytherin. Asher, however, could only think of Cassius's threat. He was sitting by the fire, pretending to read, when Elara approached him. Her face was grim. Asher, you won't believe it. Thorne just came by the common room. He actually dared to come up to our portrait and demanded to speak to you. When the fat lady naturally refused, he shouted that he'd inform every single professor, including Dumbledore himself, about your scandalous, illegal magic if you didn't confess. He said he's going to find the proof he needs. He's talking about searching your things, even trying to get a prefect to help him search the boys' dorm. Asher's blood ran cold. This wasn't just suspicion or confrontation anymore. Cassius was making good on his threat. He was going to expose him, and the next Quidditch match would be the perfect stage for it. Asher looked into the flickering flames, Professor Flint's words echoing in his mind. A conviction in your purpose. Wield it with integrity, for the greater good. It can buy you time. The idea of being exposed, of his secrets spilling out into the wizarding world, was terrifying. But what if there was another way? What if, instead of just hiding, he had to act? The final Quidditch match was coming. Cassius Thorne would be there, watching, waiting. Asher had to decide, continue to run and hide, risking certain exposure, or finally step into the storm, taking control of his destiny, even if it meant revealing the impossible truth. What would the greater good truly demand of him? And what if his next transformation wasn't an accident, but a deliberate choice? The thought sent a jolt of both fear and exhilarating resolve through him. The roar of the crowd was a physical entity, a seismic wave that vibrated through Asher's very bones as he soared into the biting November air. The final Quidditch match of the season, Gryffindor versus Slytherin. The House Cup and bragging rights for the entire year hung precariously in the balance. Every student, every professor, even the house elves seemed to have squeezed into the stands, their breath pluming white in the crisp air. Asher, a tiny speck against the massive castle backdrop, felt his stomach lurch, not just from the dizzying altitude, but from the immense pressure. He was a first year, a seeker, and the hopes of Gryffindor rested on his scrawny shoulders. More than that, the weight of his secret felt heavier than 100 bludgers. He scanned the pitch, his eyes darting, trying to find the shimmering snitch, but also keeping an anxious watch on Cassius Thorne, who was already a blur of green and silver, orchestrating Slytherin's aggressive chaser formation. Elara, a crimson streak of determination, zipped past him, a cheer of "Go, Asher," carried on the wind. She hadn't figured out his entire secret, but her sharp eyes had caught enough of his lucky breaks to offer a comforting, knowing smile that implied she was ready for anything. Professor Flint, perched high in the staff box, seemed to be observing the sky more than the game, a faint, almost imperceptible glow shimmering around his ancient runes-etched spectacles. The game was brutal. Slytherin played with a ruthless efficiency, their beaters targeting Gryffindor chasers with malicious glee, and Thorne himself weaving through the defense like a viper. Asher, despite his heightened senses when transforming, knew he couldn't risk it. Not in front of everyone. The shame of public exposure, the fear of what Dumbledore or the Ministry might do, was crippling. He dodged a bludger, his Nimbus 2000 a blur, his breath ragged. Then, the sky itself seemed to turn against them. What began as an innocent drizzle intensified, churning into a furious squall. Lightning cracked across the darkening heavens, illuminating the horrified faces in the stands. A sudden, violent gust of wind, charged with the raw power of the storm, tore through the Quidditch pitch. It wasn't just a natural phenomenon. Asher, with his nascent connection to ancient magic, felt an undercurrent of wild, uncontrolled power lashing out, an unintended consequence of some overambitious student's weather charm gone horribly wrong. Amplified by the natural tempest. A sickening creak echoed across the stadium. One of the main support pillars for the Gryffindor stands, weakened by age and now buffeted by the enchanted gale, began to crack. Splinters exploded outwards, a groaning tear ripping through the enchanted wood. A collective gasp rose from the crowd, quickly followed by screams as the stands lurched precariously, threatening to send hundreds of students plummeting to the ground. Elara, having just scored a brilliant goal, was flying past the collapsing section, her eyes wide with terror as she saw the sheer scale of the impending disaster. She wasn't close enough to be directly hit, but the falling debris would block her escape. Fear constricted Asher's throat, but seeing Elara, seeing the terrified faces of his classmates, something shifted within him. The crushing burden of his secret was momentarily eclipsed by the primal urge to protect. He didn't think, he didn't strategize. He simply reacted. This wasn't about winning a game anymore. This was about saving lives. He pulled his broom into a sharp, impossible ascent, the wind tearing at his robes. He could hear Professor Flint's voice, echoing in his mind from a past lesson. True power, young Asher, is not merely in its wielding, but in the wisdom of its restraint, and the courage of its necessary release. Shazam! Asher roared, his voice raw and desperate, cutting through the din of the storm and the terrified screams. A bolt of lightning, impossibly bright and deafening, struck him midair. The sky momentarily turned white, blinding everyone. A thunderclap ripped through the very fabric of reality, shaking the castle foundations. Where a nervous, scrawny first year had been, there now hovered a towering, powerfully built figure. Captain Asher, resplendent in his crimson and gold, his face etched with grim determination, his eyes glowing with inner power, stood firm against the raging storm. The entire stadium fell silent, a stunned, collective gasp replacing the screams. Cassius Thorne, who had been mere feet away from the snitch, froze mid-dive, his jaw slack. His eyes, usually shrewd and calculating, were wide with a mix of shock and utter disbelief, his suspicion of illegal magic now dwarfed by the sheer, undeniable display of raw, magnificent power. Captain Asher wasted no time. With a single, powerful beat of his wings that hadn't been there a second ago, now shimmering with arcane energy, he rocketed towards the collapsing stands. He moved with impossible speed, a streak of light against the tempestuous sky. The air around him shimmered, charged with his arcane energy. He reached the failing support pillar first, his immense strength evident as he braced it with one arm, the wood groaning but holding. With his other hand, he unleashed a blast of pure magical energy, stabilizing the fractured timber, binding it together with an ancient, glowing enchantment that pulsed with the very life force of the castle itself. He then soared upwards, catching falling debris, huge planks of wood and dislodged stones, with impossible ease, gently redirecting them away from the students below. He swept through the air, plucking terrified students who had been jolted from their seats, depositing them safely onto stable sections of the stands. Elara, wide-eyed and shaken, could only watch, a strange mixture of terror and awe on her face. She knew it was Asher. She had to. But how? His power was a whirlwind, battling the storm, sealing the cracks, calming the panicked crowd with an almost palpable aura of protection. Within moments, the immediate danger was averted. The stands, though battered, were secure. The rogue spell's power dissipated. The storm itself seemed to subside, as if intimidated by this new force. He landed gently, not on the Quidditch pitch, but on a relatively stable section of the Gryffindor stands, depositing the last rescued student. The crowd remained silent, mesmerized, a mix of fear and wonder painted on their faces. Even the professors, who had been scrambling to cast emergency charms, stood frozen, their wands lowered. Professor Flint, however, had a faint, knowing smile playing on his lips, a look of profound satisfaction in his eyes. He slowly clapped, a single, resonant sound in the sudden quiet, breaking the spell of silence. A ripple of applause, hesitant at first, then booming, erupted from the relieved Gryffindors. Captain Asher looked out at the faces, seeing the gratitude, the confusion, and yes, the fear. He saw Cassius Thorne, still hovering on his broom, his competitive fire utterly extinguished, replaced by a complex, unreadable expression. He saw Elara, tears streaming down her face, but a fierce, proud grin blooming. His work here was done. With a quiet, almost reluctant sigh, he uttered the word once more, his voice soft but resonating with power, Shazam. Another flash of brilliant lightning, another crack of thunder, less violent this time, more controlled. And when the light faded, Asher Pendelton stood there, small and a little shaky, but alive. His uniform was slightly singed, his hair wild, but he was undeniably himself. He looked at the wreckage, at the still shaking students, and at the gaping professors. Dumbledore, who had rushed onto the pitch, stared at Asher, his blue eyes twinkling with an uncharacteristic intensity, a hint of something ancient and knowing in their depths. The snitch, forgotten by all, fluttered gently down, landing harmlessly in Asher's outstretched hand. He had caught it. Gryffindor had won. But the victory felt secondary, almost insignificant, to what had just transpired. The match was officially declared suspended, but the victory was undeniably Gryffindor's. More importantly, the secret was out. Asher Pendelton was no longer just a nervous first year. He was the lightning seeker. He had exposed his greatest secret to save his friends, and in doing so, he had, for the first time, truly embraced the awesome power that resided within him. The burden hadn't vanished, but it had transformed into a responsibility, a calling. As the ministry representatives would undoubtedly descend upon Hogwarts within the hour, seeking answers about the boy who called down lightning, Asher knew his life would never be the same. He had found his strength, not just physical, but moral. But as he looked up at the vast, mysterious castle, a new question began to form. The power had saved them, but who, or what, had truly bestowed it upon him, and what did they expect in return from the newly revealed hero of Hogwarts? His journey to understand the true nature of his abilities and the ancient entity behind them was only just beginning.